Williams responded in a uniquely Williams way, and like Williams students, we'd done our homework in advance to prepare us to respond. We'd managed the college conservatively. We had an endowment that was managed in a way that was liquid and gave us the flexibility to do things that, frankly, other institutions didn't have the degrees of freedom to do. We had invested a lot in our campus over the preceding 10 or 20 years, not only building new buildings, but being very diligent about maintenance and renewal. It's not as if we just responded day one and were able to react to the downturn. We were ready. Unlike a lot of other institutions, we had no forced layoffs. We did not have to liquidate any part of our portfolio under duress. We did not have to go into the taxable market and raise debt. Certainly from the very beginning, we did things we could do quickly, which were hiring freezes, salary freezes, cuts in capital renewal budget, kind of the low-hanging fruit that you could do while you're buying time to figure out the more complicated and frankly more difficult expense reductions. Such as we eventually cut the dining halls from 5 to 3. We offered early retirement programs for faculty and staff. We obviously cut managers' budgets, and that's a process that takes time to identify where in managers' budgets that things can be cut. And nothing was spared. Nobody was left out of the conversation. I think that's one reason that it worked so well, that it was felt and participated in across the board. Just to put it in perspective, we had planned on spending $94 million from the endowment in fiscal year 08-09. And we wound up spending 2 years later, in actuality for the fiscal year ending June of this past year, June of 10, that we wound up spending about $65 million. So nearly a $30 million change in what we had planned to spend from the endowment annually, which we wound up spending just this past year. And that came from a combination of cost reductions, revenue enhancements, and other methods. One item that continued to grow because it's of strategic importance to the college and really part of what Williams is about is financial aid. And while we made a couple adjustments to financial aid, for instance, we reinstituted our loan program, a modest loan program. We also became need aware in some instances for international students. Both those were cost-saving measures, but overall our financial aid budget is by far the fastest growing line item in our budget. In fact, the only line item that has grown over the last few years. Williams is in a unique position to be able to offer the level of quality of the instruction and the whole experience here largely because of the endowment and also the generosity of our alumni. We spend on average $75,000 per student out of pocket. That's treating financial aid as a discount. And when full tuition is a little over $50,000, it says that even a full-paying student is subsidized and largely by the endowment. And certainly financial aid, students on financial aid are subsidized to an even greater amount. The unique Williams part was not doing it by fiat of either the board or the trustees. It was done in a way that was community-based. The entire community felt that the number one thing that needed to be preserved at Williams was the whole experience of the student in the classroom and the quality of the instruction and the academic experience that our students are exposed to. But also extremely important in that effort was the generosity of our donors, parents, alums, and others in the community. And it was extremely important during the downturn, and it will be extremely important going forward. Over $10 million of annual fund giving was raised last year in a very difficult climate from the generosity of our parents and alums primarily, and that's a significant part of our budget. So it will continue to be a significant part of our budget going forward, and allow us to have the generous financial aid programs, and allow us to be committed to a diverse student body, and allow us to attract the best faculty and the best students to Williams College. So having made it through the crisis, first of all, none of us sitting around the board table, nor probably in the institution as a whole, are going to say it's totally over. So therefore, we need to be prepared if there is another downturn. And I think we've done things in our investment office, in Hopkins Hall, and elsewhere to give ourselves the flexibility to be able to respond if there is another crisis or a downturn. Undoubtedly, a new president is going to come up with priorities over time, but Adam will do that in a way, in working with the community in a way that's fiscally prudent and makes sense for the college.